Holy hooked on serotonin, Batman. Tiki here, and I have been watching through each and every episode of Batman Beyond for the first time. Dragon, tell him why we're here.
Well, you see, folks, long ago, I made a vow to educate Tiki in the ways of Batman the Animated Series, serving as his spirit guide to Gotham in a way. But that was the past, and we must now enter the Batman's future.
That's right, and tonight we are talking about Hooked Up. It is season 2, episode 8. All right, Dragon, this is the big after school special virtual reality is a fill in for drugs metaphor episode. Yeah, quite interesting. You know what? I will say my favorite part of this episode is the fact that I will say this might have the least action out of any Batman Beyond episode so far that we've covered. And I approve of that. I feel like this is a very character centered episode. Of course, Max gets a big spotlight. It's great to see her come more into the fold. I feel like this is kind of like a big sort of like step forward for her as far as like her dynamic with Carrie goes and her involvement in the Batman stuff. So overall, I quite liked it. I don't necessarily think there's like a big wow moment or anything like that, but I would give it a solid like 7.58 out of 10. I definitely think it's an improvement over the last few episodes we've covered.
Okay. Yeah, so this was directed by the great Dan Reba, of course. The kind of the Dan Scanlon of the DC universe. He did Blackout, which is one of my favorites. Not the favorite, but it's in the top 10 somewhere. This is written by the great Bob Goodman. Now, Bob Goodman, this guy, he is a very much. He went on to do the Dark Knight Returns animated movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So no, obviously Frank Miller did the majority of that in the original sense, but still he adapted it. He was there. This guy's always been involved in adapting Dark Knight Returns to animation. Legends of the Dark Knight and so on and so forth. Anyway, Bob Goodman. He did Spellbound, which was the original introduction of Spellbinder. Did Ascension, the finale of season 1, and also did Blackout. Oh, they're buddies. Look at them, little dynamic duo of director writers there. Isn't that cute? Look at them. All right. So, studio worked on this. You'll be shocked, I know. Brace yourself. Grab a blanket in the sweltering heat for some cocoa with some little marshmallowy nuggets of Dong Yang in there.
Insert Iago. I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from not surprised clip here.
Okay, so there's not a whole lot of background I can really give you on this. All I can really tell you is that this is another episode tackling addiction, because we've done this once before with the Winning Edge. We literally had drugs in that episode with steroids, with Venom. The fact it was Venom, it was like kind of a futuristic way of taking the drugs is the only way they were able to get away with that.
Right.
It's kind of the scary fact that we're probably not so far off from being able to do that. Like we already have like nicotine patches. So
the scary fact is we're not so far off from this episode becoming a reality too.
I know that's the thing. These are really ahead of their time, and this one more than the previous one. But yeah, so yeah, this is just kind of them. Here's the thing: you have to imagine that the Kids WB, they were so. This was during the big boom of Kids WB, and they were less concerned about having a message or a moral there. That was just more just by happenstance. It was kind of like this is kind of the stuff they wanted to do in the show. And Kids WB again were, as we've established, very oddly very very just kind of carefree, very just kind of loose. It's like handguns and television with the kids, and just put them in peril, like kick the crap out of Batman every episode. Do it, yeah. Let's get scary. Let's have a sentient corpse. Let's do it, man. We're the metal network for the kids. Now, of course, we're not complaining because it did give some really good stories and stuff. It's kind of a day and night compared to a Batman the Animated Series being really clever about getting around the censorship, and it's like, no, we don't care. Just go nuts.
Right.
Shoot a guy. We don't care. But yeah, so I don't think it was like them saying, like, "Hey, you have to have some drug PSAs here." It's just more of like, "Well, we're in a high school setting, and what kind of feels natural, and also what's something the kids look like these days. I mean, still these days, but especially those days, video games and virtual reality."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of a takeoff of that. Now, just to kind of track it here, Max is in the know about Terry, but does not know Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Important little flag to plant there, and they kind of talk about it lightly in the episode. This is the return of Spellbinder, kind of a 2 out of 3 appearances for him. And lastly, I mean, this is the thing I wish I could confirm because it feels like this, and I don't know if you had this too, as much as I did, especially on the rewatch. I think it's really interesting how there's a lot of perchance the dream. It's almost perchance the dream beyond in this episode in
A
terms of
little bit.
yeah, not in terms of quality, mind you, but in terms of not this episode's a slouch or anything, just in terms of the concept of perchance the
Sure,
dream.
sure.
And the moral, kind of the moral complexity of that situation of perchance the dream, of like the big choice Bruce Wayne has in the third act of the episode, and picking between reality and fiction, and that's kind of like the big sell of the episode here.
I also got a lot of Inception vibes, like specifically the one, like the dream den scene from Inception.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Inception
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
lot of parallels to perchance the dream in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. There's a lot of Inception there as well.
All right.
Okay, there we go.
So let's go ahead and start things off. Dragon, I don't know if I should call this a rave. I don't think it's a rave.
No, it's a concert.
Yeah, it's a concert. Yeah. So the one thing I will say though, it's a cool idea for like an opening sequence to kind of showcase how elaborate the VR can get.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon, these lyrics are fucking terrible.
I know. I want to talk about that. Okay, so the first thing I thought of, because it's been a while, so I forgot like how the music was in this episode with that scene. So when I rewatched it, the first thing that comes to mind every time I hear music like this, the one like literally the terrible lyrics and everything, the way it's done here, I always think of that one scene in Iron Man, in the first Iron Man, where Tony Stark's in the garage, right when Pepper Potts about to tell him about his day before he goes off to do the stuff with Rhodey, it will then lead to the Iron Man origin. And you'll notice, like when he's fixing up like the hot rod, you'll hear like this guy having like terrible like talky lyrics during the rock song. And my day sucks, and this and that, and there's maybe.
Well, you know what it kind of gives me the vibe of? Is it kind of gives me the vibe of like darkness, no parents.
But Darkness, No Parents was eons better than
It was
any of those, and either of those examples. Though that's the thing. But you're right; it's in the vein there. Sure.
All right, we have Lucas Green in the chat saying Donnie's music is spellbinding. Dragon, I feel like what we need is a good old dramatic reading of the lyrics.
I mean, can you manage that?
Probably not. I don't have it all written down, but I'm gonna try my best.
All right.
To see how I can do it, like with watching it. Why don't you set it up a little bit?
I'm not going to.
Okay, the government's lame, Dragon. The government's lame, and my folks are insane, man. Till they shut down your brain. This life is all pain. But you know what? At least the stuff on the tube is emotional lube.
I did.
Yeah, but it brainwashes me to consume all I see. Okay, we'll stop there.
It's like terrible coffee house poetry. But
I don't. It is genuinely awful lyrics.
So I mean, it's kind of interesting because the thing with Donnie is that there's kind of there is some sympathy to be had by the same token, though. You look at Donnie in this, and then later on, just the things that he does. I mean, I just find it really interesting to realize that Donnie. So the idea, he's famous rock star and everything. I like the little clever foreshadow visually that he's the stand that he is performing on essentially is like the little reality. It's a little VR setup, a little hovering VR setup. Little kind of foreshadow to something, how reality is correlating to the dream. But yeah, it's interesting that he's kind of in the fantasy. He's kind of like too cool for school. He's over it, He's just kind of going around, and you have like the edgy joke of like, sign me.
Oh God! Right? Anywhere.
I know. Plus, she was lifting that shirt up, man.
Oh man.
Again, kids WB, they didn't care. So odd. With kids in the name, they didn't care. That's the thing. He's like, it's so interesting that he's almost numb to fame in this, yet when he's out of it, it's such a stark contrast, and he's so desperate.
I'm so glad you picked up on that, because I picked up on that as well. Just the fact that, like, yeah, you're right. He is not really getting a lot out of it, and you know what? That is very much just like what addiction is like.
Mhm.
You know, it's like there is a thing called a tolerance. You build up a tolerance for whatever you're taking, and that is exactly what he's going through with, you know, just kind of feeling the malaise of the stardom.
Yeah, absolutely. So but here's the thing. I don't know if it's a mistake or not that when he goes to the limo, he gets kind of excited for the three girls. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's
the rock star lifestyle, Dragon.
That's the thing. I was just saying we see him so numb to it, and then he walks in there, and it's like, okay, life is good. And then, because we need to show that, okay, folks, he does actually care about being in this simulation, at least some part of it.
Oh,
yeah, more the Minority Report part of it, I guess.
Oh God.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, he gets plucked out of it by Spellbinder. We reveal Spellbinder is our bad guy, and he basically has set up somewhere a VR parlor. Again, much like that scene in Minority Report. And yeah, so he's begging to be put back in, which again is the utter desperation of this kid. Like, it hurts to be out here, please. And again, we're hitting like the addict stuff very well again for our kids show here. And again, we found like the perfect way. Again, not the kids that we probably would have stopped if they went hard drugs. Let's be honest. But let's just. I'm kidding.
Heroin, sure, why not?
I think in reality they probably would have stopped him at a certain point. But let's just say, for argument's sake, here's the fact. Them playing by a rule book that seemingly doesn't exist on Kids WB. The fact that they found like a really clever workaround to actually talk about drugs in a very realistic way, but still being like hit the touchstone so kids could actually learn something from the episodes. Really, really clever in that sense. Anyway, so yes, the fact that we're playing the withdrawal really very realistically. You want more, you know what you have to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Lucas Green says, out of all the Spellbinder plots, would you say this is his best? What do you think?
Well, that's honestly, Spellbinder has 3 really solid episodes in Batman Beyond, and this one, I mean, going back to it, I don't think Hooked Up gets the love that it necessarily deserves, because I don't know if people sometimes write off as the drug PSA, or more so, the other 2 episodes are kind of the third one that we're going to get to. He plays a very big role in, but he's very minimally in the episode. So that's what makes it tricky. So this is in terms of a full. I mean, that's the thing. The first Spellbinder episode is like a full Spellbinder episode. This is like he's in it, but he's kind of he's the guy pulling the strings. And then later on, we're going to do that even more so. So I can't really say it's necessarily the best Spellbinder episode, but
I mean, by that logic, I would probably say the first one is the best one.
That's the thing. But this might be the best usage of Spellbinder, though, if you look at it that way.
All right. Let's see. We have Richard's victims in the comments. He said, I hear Oscar was on your stream last night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we love us some Oscar Schindler.
Oscar Schindler.
Yeah.
He also says, actual thing, I think Spellbinder should be Terry's main Batman villain.
Well, that's the thing. Spellbinder very much has the potential to be Scarecrow, because essentially he's the not the touchstone for Scarecrow, but he's kind of the archetype for Scarecrow.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he's technically, especially this episode, he's kind of a combination. Like last episode, he was mainly Scarecrow. Now he's kind of Scarecrow mixed with the Mad Hatter, which again is part of the course with this character. He's kind of like a fun amalgam of those two, dressed in like as we shouted out earlier by Code Geass, anime fan. The fact that Spellbinder is he's a very obscure one-note Batman pulled it in, kind of refabricated,
almost kind of like the Spot, dare I say?
Not really. He's not that interesting.
Not that obscure. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying the fact, like for example, Batman's equivalent to the Spot is Polka Dot Man. So
Code Geass also says, hot take, I think that the leader of the Jokers that Bruce Timm voice should be Terry's archenemy.
Oh,
Right.
come on. But no, there's this. The fact that Spellbinder was kind of refurbished from just kind of like, oh, it's a hypnotist, kind of a hypnotism themed bad guy, and that sort of thing. And then later on with the Batman, they found like another use for it that's kind of closer to that initial introduction. But still, Batman's going to tout Batman Beyond did Spellbinder though. Made a lot of sense.
Oh,
and as Richard Vickman just says, I got a thing for illusion type villains. My favorite Spider-Man villain is Mysterio. And again, per the Spider-Man parallels of the show, there was a lot of Mysterio in there as well. So, there's a lot of influences in Spellbinder.
He says, do not compare the Spot to freaking Polka Dot Man.
But that's true. Even look at the Suicide Squad movie. It's the same principle of like,
it is kind of the same principle of like taking like a very lame villain and then like very much elevating them.
Yeah. So that's the game.
I'm surprised James Gunn didn't have anything to do with the Spot.
Yeah.
All right.
So, getting back to the episode. So, Terry, of course, he's slagged, as the kids in the future say. He's slagged, from all doing stuff Mr. Wayne, his nocturnal activities, and Max is kind of pointing this out. And she wants an active role. She doesn't want a costume. She ain't Bullseye. She wants an active role.
Mm-hmm.
So, meanwhile, Donnie on the street, he's begging for creds like a vagrant.
And then he really does not take some guy telling him to get a job well at all, Dragon.
So this is what the really fascinating layer to the episode on the rewatch to me. It really kind of like hit me in my core as a Batman fan. I was like, oh man, this is a really interesting kind of layer to add to our plot here. Essentially, he kind of flips out on the guy, he beats him up. I try doing it the nice way, and he mugs him. So Spellbinder is driving teens to crime, in effect. In relation to the mission of the Batman, Spellbinder is creating Joe Chills of the future.
Totally.
I find that to be a fascinating idea. So, I mean, the more I revisit the episode, the more I would say maybe it is the best Spellbinder episode, just in terms of, like, we have a lot of really good things.
That makes sense. I mean, like you said, Spellbinder almost kind of feels like a Wizard of Oz type character, like a man behind the curtain almost.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing, at least 2 out of 3 times.
You really, like weirdly enough, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any actual action between Batman and Spellbinder this episode.
Well, that's the thing. We've only had him fight Batman one time at the climax of the first Spellbinder episode. Batman usually chased Spellbinder in that first episode, and here we don't.
Like I said, I appreciate the fact that this episode is so light on action. Like the most action we have is just kind of like a brief chase scene.
All we have action-wise, yes, we have a chase. We have out of the suit fight, and it's brief, and there's no real it's not action in the kind of the fisticuffs and the bat suit sense. All right, so Downey's up to no good. Meanwhile, Batman on patrol here. He's and this is I love this conversation here. So Batman's on patrol, looking around, and he's having a conversation with Bruce, who's walking. He says, "Love the mundane." Bruce, he walks the dog. It's the only times he gets out of the house. He walks the dog around the grounds of Wayne Manor. It's really nice. Terry is telling about Max. So
she wants to get involved over my dead body.
I mean, this is the great Conroy moment, right? There's a lot of great. To be fair, there's a lot of great.
That's probably one of the great Conroy lines. Yeah,
there are a lot of good contenders this episode, but this is the funniest though. Just like over my dead body. He really does not want Max in the fold. And again, this is a bit of an arc that's gonna happen. Bruce Wayne doesn't like Max. He doesn't like the fact that Terry, and I loved it. It was really funny about it too. The funniest thing about this, one of the reasons, I think one of the meta reasons Bruce doesn't like Max is that her big full introduction episode was the episode he wasn't in.
Oh my god!
For the first time we didn't get a Bruce Wayne episode, it was her. It was the Terminal episode. It was the. It was the Hidden Agenda episode, it's the All Max episode, and then by the end she figures out, like, oh, where was Bruce during any of this? He ain't gonna be happy when he gets back to the episode. All right, so they're on the same page. Like, he doesn't want Max, and everybody's asking, well, how do I do it? How do I tell her no? And then, of course, another funny Bruce Wayne line here. You're asking me for advice on handling women?
Okay, that to me was like my Great Conroy nomination.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love that, like, in his old age, he is very much just accepted, like, yeah, I am not a ladies' man by any extent.
Something to something to kind of take note of here is that you'll notice season 2 we're getting minimal Bruce Wayne. We had a whole episode that did not have Bruce Wayne in it, so we're getting Bruce Wayne sparingly in these episodes. But again, speaking to the strength of Terry's holding his own in these episodes.
Sure.
Our boy, our boy's becoming his own Batman. Aren't we proud?
All right, we have Warp Monarch in the comments. He says Spellbinder is the Mysterio to Batman's Spider-Man.
Yeah. Oh, so you left the gag on the table, Tiki.
What, this?
No, not that gag. I meant our gag. Like I said, we're proud of our boy, Tiki. We're
Oh, okay. Yes, we are indeed proud of our boy. I'm sorry.
Proud of our boy.
God.
Anyway. Okay. So let's see. Anyways, the point being, we have this great Will Friedle reading of I see your point. It's really good interplay between the two of them. Okay, so Batman spots Donnie Grasso, the runaway from school. He's
okay. Can I just say I don't know why, but I think Grasso is just such a perfect last name for like a street punk.
It works.
I don't know why. It just really, really rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Donnie Grasso.
Donnie Grasso. Yeah, you know why? Because a high school age villain, high school age, kid is probably Degrassi, little Degrasso.
Oh my god.
Or in this case, Degrassi, Next Generation.
Oh, jeez. All right.
All right. So anyway, Batman spots our runaway purse snatcher, and he give back the bag. Doesn't go with your shoes. Little Batman quippage. So also, we should mention the voice of Donnie. Tiggy, you recognized the voice, didn't you?
I don't really. I looked him up in the credits. I don't really remember what he's from.
Yeah, Jason Marsdale. Max Goof.
Oh, Marsden. Oh, yeah. Of course. Him. Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the voice of Spellbinder.
No, Donnie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Max Goof on Hard Times.
I mean, honestly, I didn't even really feel the need to bring it up just because he's a pretty prominent voice actor. He pops up in a lot of stuff. So.
Oh yeah, but the pat on the back never hurt.
Sure.
Okay, so here we kind of our action sequence here. This is kind of an insane sequence.
This is literally the closest we have to an action sequence, yeah.
Yeah, but I like how kind of crazy and in quotes drug fueled it is in a sense. Where he is Batman's about to get him, and he jumps off the edge and on miraculously lands on an elevator. And he says, "This guy's nuts!" He lucked out and jumping on that elevator, and then he falls. And we have this really cool gliding there. Batman saves him, and they're gliding across the street of the highway. And then the idiot he whacks Batman midair while he's the only thing that he's clinging on to for dear life. But again, he's kind of drugged up, or at least he's ODing on serotonin technically, which we'll get into a little bit momentarily. He lands on this truck and he unlatches it, and then we have this really cool runaway cargo thing. Batman has to stop the runaway cargo with the grappling lines that are built into the suit. That's cool. Anyway, so that's the end of our action sequence. So let's see. So he brings Spellbinder a bunch of creds, and he promises there's going to be more there. Oh, you will.
You know what? Spellbinder's vaguely got a little bit of a Fagin from Oliver Twist vibe this episode.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
A little bit.
Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if that was direct. That one might have been a direct influence.
Uh-huh.
At least in terms of the writing of the episode. So he's, it's the, your fans are away. Here's the thing. The really cool thing we have with Spellbinder that we never were able to get into really in Batman the Animated Series, because they're Dr. Jonathan Crane was a little different than kind of the way we're used to him now, especially post Nolan, where it's he's very much leans to the doctor aspect and the therapist aspect. This is very much like getting into that sort of thing where this guy relishes. He used to be a therapist, mainly a counselor for kids and everything. So he is, guidance counselor. So he likes to psychoanalyze people, and this gives him an avenue to do so. So he really likes your fan. He's kind of teasing people with their fantasies, like your fans are waiting. Then we have that really cool eye shot too. Or again, Spellbinder's whole gimmick is that it's a faceless mask with a little hypnosis pattern. But when he does his big magic trick, essentially, he has a little hidden eye in his palm. So because of that, we have these eye shots of going from Spellbinder inside Donnie's eyes, really cool. Good shot composition.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Okay, just to shout out some comments here. Let's see. Lucas Green just talking about the variations and drugs, splicers, slappers, and now VR. Yeah, it's cool that we made VR into an actual drug.
Oh yeah.
No,
ET, don't use the VR.
Richard's victims. I mean, if I found out someone's last name is Glasgow, I'm just giving them my money. I'm sorry. No questions asked. I am not taking the risk.
Yeah, Grazo shows up.
Grazo, yeah. Code Gios says this and the Batman are the only Batman shows to use Spellbinder. The Batman had a cool take on him, but only used him once.
I would argue they used him once for reasons like we really don't have much to go for. We have like a Frame Alfred plot. That's about all we got. It's literally all the episode was.
All right.
Anyway, not knocking the Batman. It has better episodes. I think it has more episodes that are far better than that one, but that's just my opinion. So. Jesse, not that Jesse. I know we're talking about addicts and stuff, but not that Jesse.
Yes, Dragon Jesse Pinkman is.
But in the had they made Batman Beyond live action years ago, or had it just been timed like literally it's a few years after, this would have been the beginnings of Aaron Paul's career.
Oh my god!
Been able to get him as Donnie.
Oh, totally.
Remember, fun fact.
This is actually this might be my favorite fantasy scene in the whole episode, just because of how realistic yet weird it is.
I love the dark turn that this takes.
It's
funny, but then but before we get there, I just want to make one little factoid here. Aaron Paul wasn't in something Batman related once.
Was he?
He was in the Birds of Prey pilot. He is he was like the rude date.
Oh, Jesus Christ! That is a deep cut.
That's what I'm saying. That's the pilot episode of Birds of Prey. Like Dinah, like the fill-in for Black Canary. She was on a date with a bad boy, and the bad boy was Aaron Paul.
He must have been a baby back then, man.
He was.
Oh wow!
I mean, the earliest we've ever seen Aaron Paul is The Price is Right.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Anyway, so Jesse here. We have Jesse, a young woman, presumably works in like fast food, or like a Dairy Queen or something, like some place of hot dogs. And she's in like this little horse-drawn carriage, a little handsome cab date with.
I love the design of the horse-drawn carriage, and I also love that it's like kind of like a little bit of a giveaway that it's not quite reality.
Additionally, with that too, I love the fact that you can kind of tell something's off where she's dressed casually, yet her the apple of her eye here is to sell the fantasy. You have Wendell, presumably her manager at like this Dairy Queen hot dog place.
What I love about this whole scene is I love how it's just like this guy is basically like the stereotypical like dopey teenage employee, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you never see him like idolized in that kind of way, even though like the characterization in this episode is still very much just like teenage employee, but it's really interesting to see that kind of like perspective on him.
Now, speaking of James Gunn earlier,
one
of James Gunn's buddies is in this scene. Michael Rosenbaum, the great Michael Rosenbaum, of course, the Flash, Lex Luthor, well loved. He voices Wendell here, and it's Michael Rosenbaum him having fun playing like kind of like the kind of the teen angst romance.
I could lose my promotion for this.
Yep. But you know what? I got that promotion. And will you marry me? Like, so again, so you can tell something's off, and then, so it's all we're playing the comedy.
It's like very humble, kind of like teenage romance fantasy. You know what I mean? It's like she's not really asking for the moon here.
You gotta respect that, though. Don't
you? I do. Yeah.
Like, she's not imagining Fabio. She's imagining I like this guy. But he's my manager, so it's a little intimidating. So I probably haven't made a move. But if she could make a move or have it just work out miraculously. Do something like this. So we go from that, which is playing for comedy and just but then we have this really dark turn where she has a seizure. She has an
Uh-huh.
overdose. This is where she ODs on serotonin. Where essentially is the idea like we're overstimulating the pleasure sensors of the brain, especially if they stay in there for long periods of time or keep going in, like with withdrawal symptoms. She's like foaming at the mouth and she just falls unconscious. Here's the darkest thing of the episode. I forgot. And they cover their. I know why they were able to get away with this. So she kind of falls to the ground again. Aside from the fact kids WB just really didn't care. I'll tell you. So anyway, yeah. So she just kind of falls to the ground. They need another body so they can do kind of like the whole like Oliver Twist thing.
The only way they get away with it is just because of the whole fact that he tells them to bring her back, implying that she isn't dead.
No, that's not what happens, Tiki.
Oh, okay.
She falls to the ground. There's this really dark thing that we
Wait,
then
is she dead?
Well, no, I'm getting to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
She's not. No, she's not dead.
I was like, holy shit, did I misread
But
that?
that's what I'm saying, though. Initially, they treat her like she is dead or like someone ODing who's about to die. Because she falls to the ground and basically, okay, well, we need another one. So they can do the Oliver Twist thing here. And it's shocking because it's like, dump this mess across town. So dump this mess across town is like the realistic, like, we're gonna just dump the body in front of the hospital sort of thing, or in this case, just put her in a dumpster.
Right.
So again, we're paralleling, the in real life thing that people do with addicts all the time, like probably like a crack house or something, which someone's like, or like what do we call the place in Breaking Bad where Jesse's at the end of it? Like, we have like all the addicts at the end of season 2.
Probably just a crack house.
Just literally crack house. We didn't have any. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what else you want from me. I
don't know. I thought it was
what it is.
I thought there was like a different name for it. Okay, anyway. Point being.
A drug den?
There you go. That's what I was looking for.
Was that what you're looking for? All right.
I was looking for drug den, yes.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. So, like a drug den. Anyway, so they're finding recruits, and then basically we have kind of our little Batcave exposition scene here where they've been turning up at hospitals, ODing on serotonin. That's the only reason they were able to get away with that. And we see her picture on the screen, so we know, okay, so she's not dead, and Bruce Wayne, who we trust, has told us she's in a hospital. And they're basically comatose. So that's the only way they were able to get away with it.
What if Bruce Wayne just lied to Terry to protect him? She actually is dead.
Spellbinders, a menace. We gotta stop. But no, so that's it. So that's a realistic, way I can buy them getting away with that sort of thing. But still, it's the fact they were able to go that far up to the line, We know Kids WB isn't double checking these episodes. If they wanted to, they probably could have fudged the details and got away with that. Look at all these victims, Terry. This is sad.
Richard's victim says, the crack 5-star hotel. That sounds like that seems like a Futurama joke.
Yeah, it does actually. All right. So we're in the Batcave. We established the whole, like, literally what's going on with the brain chemistry. I like the brain chemistry science that we're putting in this episode as well, with the whole serotonin thing of like, okay, how can we
basically like ecstasy. That's pretty much how ecstasy works. It's literally just a big boost of serotonin. So,
again, it's a clever way of getting realistic and very authentic with the drug stuff, even though we can't go verbatim with like certain things, So yeah, they're comatose but stable. They put a fine point, but stable. And they're all runaways. So meanwhile, Terry and Max, they visit Donnie's house because Max knows Donnie's family, so that's the only reason she's coming along there, and Terry's reluctant to bring her along, given the whole thing he talked about with Bruce Wayne earlier. And we see, he can tell us about Donnie's home life.
It's not good.
No, it's not. No, not at all.
I mean, the house itself is just in shambles. There's like literal like holes in the wall on the doors.
Yep.
I'm assuming that there's no electricity. It's just completely a mess. Yeah. And I got to tell you, Dragon, I was really struck by Donnie's parents. I think that their designs and the voice acting are just really haunting and realistic.
I know, right? So yeah, so we have just kind of we're kind of replicating the real life home life of
they're just like, you can tell that they're not even really bad people per se. They're just entirely at their limit.
They are at their limit, and there's a debate you could have about Donnie's father. Because depending on how you look at, some people have read into this episode that there's abuse going on, and I mean, there's an
That's honestly not how I read it.
That's the thing. It's up to interpretation. Where
I would say the worst case scenario is that these people are basically like Jesse Pinkman's parents.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think
except they're not handling it as well as Jesse Pinkman's parents handled it.
That's the thing. They're being
when I say handled it, I mean just like putting on a front essentially.
I know. I agree. That's what we're basically playing. I think the way it's intended and the way it ultimately is that it is Pinkman's parents, but without kind of like without the manners. Honestly, without kind of the proper manners.
right.
Father. And but then again, some people have pointed out that the whole get back in the kitchen, and he's
like you got to wonder if Jesse was an only child and his parents didn't have like the younger kid to kind of like strive to to make a future for. Like they could have ended up like these people.
No, for sure, yeah. That's the fact that we're replicating real life so well with like what home life might lead to kids down poor life decisions, So that's the thing. So Don and Elaine here, like the
most haunting part for me is when the mother's like, do you know where he is? Does he need anything from his room? And then the father's like, we don't care.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he basically stole from us. The cops kept bringing that kid back, and they said, need more TLC. Well, if you find him, tell him, don't come back.
You know what, though? I got to admit, I'm kind of on the father's side when he says, like, and the cops just kept telling us, I can't tell you how many times we heard, he just needs more TLC.
Exactly.
Like, I am firmly on this man's side, honestly.
See, there's the thing, Tiki. I'm with you, absolutely. So basically, the way you're reading it right now is the way I've read it for years. But rewatching the episode, one thing did occur to me. The state of the house... Okay,
the state of the house is the one question, yeah.
Like the state of the house, like there's no like the fact that the door was unlocked and the place is in utter disarray, and that implies to me that home was just really lousy, maybe incurring the like the escapism to the.
I feel like there's some ambiguity there.
No, there absolutely is. I think it's intentional. There's some ambiguity because again, there's some intensity behind the father. Like, get in the kitchen, like
sure.
So a little bit, there's a little bit there, but you're right, though. I think there is, at the very least, there's an air of sympathy. But again, the fact it is ambiguous, I think it was a smart call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Max, she's kind of taking a moment to appreciate her own home life. Foreshadow,
right?
Yeah. Anyway, so
it costs trauma.
Yeah. So anyway, so they snagged one of the cred cards that he had, so they can basically track his purchases and kind of deduce where he's going. So that leads to Vroom, as in the VR room. Basically, kind of this kind of section of arcade stuff that they basically it's this arcade that he goes to frequently. Where probably, if I'm a betting man, I would say that Donnie probably went there first, and then we see Spellbinder has kind of a different setup.
It's literally the gateway drug dragon.
I think so. Spellbinder probably recruited him there, and then he basically moved him to the separate facility that the third act takes place, and that is my logic for what happens there. Because when you start off, that's the thing. All the kids when they recruit, they go to the arcade. It's probably where it all started.
Sure.
All right.
That's also probably where a lot of drug deals went down in the 80s. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, look at RoboCop too.
right.
You've seen, all right.
Richard's victim says, "Get in the kitchen." Good thing he didn't add, "Where you belong."
This is a random aside. It's got me thinking about it now. I really wish you'd watched the original RoboCop, Tiki.
Yeah, I know I need to, Dragon. I know I need.
But here's why.
Honestly, Dragon, at this point, I'm kind of hoping that it comes back around to flashback cinema so I can actually see it on the big screen. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Well, here's why I bring it up, too, because here's the thing. Part of me wishes, one, you watch the originals for your own enrichment, but then if you did that and you braved the sequel, because I wonder how you'd react to the sequel, because it is darker, and it doesn't do it for me, but I wonder if it would do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. So we go to the arcade. We go to a room. As we go to the arcade, we see the hover VR thing, which essentially Spellbinder has kind of like outfitted with his technology, so it becomes super addictive and serotonin, kind of ODing. And Max raises the question here, the fun kind of ironic thing of like, well, if it was dangerous, Terry, you think they let kids do it? There's your message line, kids. There's the message line. Right, so Max is going to do some background research on Doom Racer. So Donnie and his pals, who've been sent on the hunt for another recruit to replace the drugged out one. Kip's our smooth talker here. Kip tries to recruit Max. Max is on. I like that. Of course, Cree Summers, the way she. Let's not about Cree Summers for saying how wonderful she is. Go on, Tiki. Say some nice things about Cree Summers.
I mean, she's one of the best voice acting talents we have, Dragon. I don't know what else there is to say about her.
I mean, her performance in this episode. I mean, what she does in this episode.
Well, I mean, you're right. There is. I feel like there is a lot of subtlety. I feel like, just in that line, the kind of Chekhov's trauma thing. It's like she's kind of holding in a lot of pain. And I feel like because of that performance, we do get, I think it's realistic that she goes off the deep end in this episode as quickly as she does.
Yeah, and I like that we kind of play the cleverness initially here. Like, she's on to the lead, and she says, "Can I bring a friend?"
Uh-huh.
So, Terry.
Can I just point out, when this dude says, like, "You won't believe what it feels like," and then he leans in really close, like all fucking Frodo-like, it feels like love. Oh, major creep vibes, Dragon. Major creep vibes. Feels like love all over you.
Yep, very creepy. Very creepy.
Very creepy. Very appropriate use of that, yes.
Terry puts a fine point on the whole, no, there's no us on this, just me, okay? You found the lead, now let me run with it. So Kip is then making the sales pitch, seeing there's some discourse going on there. And he says, it's dangerous, this is really great. I love the writing. The thing there was kind of gets glazed over because we're always about, oh, look how cool, Batman, Batman is in the suit and everything, and Terry's equipment and everything. But you know what? The little moments with Terry outside the suit, where it shows like a strong character, this kid here, where he says, like, dangerous, McGinnis, what are you worried about? And he says, why don't you ask Donnie? And we look over the Donnie, he's like going through intense withdrawal. So I love that it's a really well directed. To Reba's credit, man, it's a really
Donnie's totally fine.
I love how Reba directed this moment here, where Terry just has this really kind of like this really honest remark about just ask Donnie, and we pan over to him, and then we pan over to like to Kip in the foreground here, just like anyway.
It's like, nah, let's just ignore that.
Max doesn't need a chaperone, but he's also like looking at the weakness in Donnie. He's like, man, you're ruining my sales pitch.
right.
So Max doesn't need a chaperone, so she kind of goes like, look, I'll be fine. So then Donnie, Donnie's such an idiot. Donnie says, again, if you're going to be in this drug enterprise, maybe you shouldn't say, like Heisenberg willy-nilly, maybe you shouldn't put that out there in this case. Donnie's like, he mentioned Spellbinder. Spellbinder hooks us up real good. And that's red alert for Terry. Like, oh god, I know who the villain of the episode is, and he runs to get him. He's tackled, and he loses the backpack with the suit for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of our only real fight scene in quotes here, where Terry's he's taking these punks out. He's taking out that punk Donnie, and he avoids like the little rope stand that's about to like take his head off, and he knockout punches that guy anyway. So. We then see what Max's Vroom fantasy is. Do you tell us about the Vroom fantasy?
Yeah, it's basically just like a perfectly happy like home life.
Yeah, with both her parents and her sister.
You know what it kind of vaguely reminds me of? It kind of vaguely reminds me of that one joke early on in Across the Spider-Verse where it's like Miles' fantasy of what would happen if he told his parents about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
We love you and unconditionally accept you.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, so again, it's just the fact that Max's big fantasy, as we started off, we saw the big rock star existence, and the big fantasy for her is just, just family dinner.
Which I really like that all these, like, honestly, the big rock star existence thing is, like, by far the most elaborate one. All the other ones that we saw have been pretty modest, which I like.
Yeah. Yeah, so then of course we shift from the fantasy to reality. We have like the creepy pupilless Max.
I love that design.
Yeah, it's creepy, right?
It's like alien-like.
Yeah, that's plus it's like the green effect of like the like little the VR hovering setup. So and again, I love that Spellbinder, he's just relishing the analysis on these VR victims here. With this whole VR plot that he has afoot there. Like, getting the love she could never get in real life. So Max, she's now again. Oh, poor Max Gibson here. She's breaking into cars looking for creds, and Terry in the bat suit. It was the first time she's talked to him like this in the suit,
which is a really cool kind of benchmark.
Yeah. So she's like being in the know for a change. She's talking to Terry in the suit, and he's giving her the PSA of like you're gonna end up like a vegetable. Like a veg. Sorry, he shortens it all future slang. You end up a veg.
And to me, it's very alarming just how quickly she just dives right into the addiction side of it. She's like, you don't know what it's like. Like, now that I have had a taste of it, I need it, essentially.
Yeah, she's going through withdrawal, essentially, or at least the fear of withdrawal.
So
he injects Max, to basically detox her at her place, knock her out, and hopefully she'll sleep it off while he finds like the better cure. And he does that. We go to Max's house and we learn a little bit about her. We learn their parents split up, and the mom's working all the time, and it's just her and her sister really. So Terry goes to call the guy. We're not saying Bruce Wayne yet. It goes to
right.
So then Max knocks him out with a plant, and so I don't know if we should count this now. We have like a Terry.
Oh, I absolutely think we should count it.
Okay, so that puts us.
Come on, it's clearly a Terry. Why wouldn't we count it?
Well, I don't know. Because here's the thing. So we were officially at 8, but then we were at the 9 mark. I questioned the 9 mark in Bloodsport because we have like Terry. Are you all right? Do you count that?
Yeah, but that's different than just like the exclamation of his name.
Okay, so in that case, then, so this puts us officially at 9. If we count this, Terry.
Also, Richard's Victims has been having like a runner of Bruce Wayne hating Max. Says, it should have been Max.
God.
Let me see if I can find another one.
He's gonna warm up to Max, but it's gonna take time.
I hate Max more than I hate Joker. Okay, Bruce, come on. That's a bit much. Joker literally turned your adoptive son into Joker. All right.
I mean, honestly, I think it really is with Max. It's the whole Vicky Vale thing. It's him kind of making fun of the Vicky Vale from.
Oh God!
You can't let Vicky Vale into the Batcave. Like, no, it's never going to happen. It never happens in the animated series. We're not going to let it happen now. I don't want
exactly.
Never. All right. So anyway, so of course she says she's talking to Bruce Wayne. She's like, whoever you are, whoever's on the other line, tell him I'm sorry when he wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this great thing. This is a great scene. There's another great Conroy contender here. So later, Terry wakes up. He's driving the Batmobile very intensely. And this is a fun line getting to the great Conroy moment. Like, hey, easy on the car.
Chicks did dig the car.
That they do. So we have a classic Batman moment. The guilt. It's not Batman without the guilt. So we have the guilt here. Where I can't believe I got her into this. And then we have this great exchange from old Bruce Wayne. He's like, now you sound like Batman. Just him offering some really good wisdom here. Like, I've been right where you are more times than I can count. There's no way you could have stopped her. I love that. I just love him giving him some great advice. And again, it's kind of Bruce in a sense. I mean, slowly but surely, he's kind of getting over the traumas of the past. He's had time to stew on it in these many years. In terms of he's seen. Like what he's talking about now is very much like the Scott Snyder Batman from Death of the Family. It's very much. Bear in mind the animated series did it all the time as well.
He's like Meyer Offerman. Meyer Offerman had decades to get over the trauma of the Hulk. Wait.
Yeah.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
Okay, but still though, to my point, it's It's still, it's like Batman's always blamed himself and beat himself up. So the fact he's he's helping the new blood out with this. I don't know. It's kind of nice. Anyway.
This is one of my favorite Conroy moments here is they spot Donnie on the streets and Terry's like, oh boy, I'll feel better once I wring his neck.
Yeah, once I wring the answers out of him.
Well, yeah, he doesn't say neck. I know. I was just being over dramatic, but.
Or you could cool your jets and tail them. That's a good idea too.
I know that's not like the great Conroy moment, but that's probably my favorite Bruce moment in the episode. It's just very, very wise, just kind of bringing him back down to earth.
And again, just to show you again, like you speaking of Snyders, we have like Zack Snyder Batman be like, yeah, let's stab him a little bit to the wall and everything. Or here, it's
Did
like
somebody say prison?
Oh god. And here we have more like a Dini Batman. Dini Batman's like, I'm gonna think a little bit here for a change.
Right.
Okay. So Batman follows him to the location. We have some really cool shadows with our shot composition. Here again, Batman Beyond in shadow, like blending into the blackness of the shadow. It's actually, I think, technically our opening shot. Like you have like the thing of like him peering through like the shadows from the side of the wall. It's kind of shot from this. At least it's inspired. I don't know if they kind of saw it in the opening theory. Let's use that one day. Let's put that in one of the episodes, and they did. Look good. Okay, so we're at a medical lab. So the idea is probably an abandoned medical lab that Spellbinder used to store his core like devices to basically like pay his men essentially, get them hooked like ad infinitum. So we have a strung out Donnie. And this thing, Batman's showing Donnie again. He's talking about wringing his neck, but he's showing him some compassion here. We see Donnie all strung out, like he, unable to deliver the creds. For the next thing, he's now going comatose practically. So Batman shuts the VR orb down. Max is like, you had, and she's yelling at him. She's incensed, like, you have no right to stop me. This is my life, my choice. You have no right to stop me. You can't live in a fantasy world, Max. And she's bringing up the point of what's so great about reality. And again, we're very much getting to the perchance the dream of it all here. She has this fantasy world, and it's like, it's like, what if Bruce Wayne didn't have like the it's not real explanation for like why to leave? It's going to bring it up like it is a hard choice to make,
Sure.
Bruce Wayne and perchance the dream, that big decision is motivated deep down by the fact of like it's not real as him saying, my parents are still dead. It doesn't count. That's ultimately what he's saying there. So it's a different situation here. Like, I mean, this could actually happen in a perfect world. So it's not as fanciful as you might think with what Max's fantasy is. My parents just getting back together. Yeah. It's Spielberg's fantasy bubble.
God.
Anyway, so as they're getting into it here, again, I love Batman here. Just having this whole, maybe you cut the lonely victim act for a second. You can see what this for your own good. And then he gets this really painful shock that is our thumbnail for the episode. Poor Batman.
Yeah.
Getting the crap shocked out of him.
And I really like how, as I kind of already said, Batman he's pretty much incapacitated for the finale, and it is Max who gets to kick some ass for a change. That was a really good change of pace.
Yeah, and again, this is her first time kind of in the field, really. I mean, full on here. So I love the two, Spellbinder saying, yeah, Batman, who made you the pleasure police?
That's a very fun line, yes.
Again, I love it. Don't you love the delivery on Spellbinder? Because he's such a prissy guy, just like, who made you the pleasure police? Anyway, he's such a cocky guy. Anyway, so Max is saying, hey, you don't have to kill him. He won't be back. Of course, the deluded addict kind of lifestyle here, where again, like he's facing the hard choices. Spellbinder is facing with the hard choices. Like, hey, this is none of your concern. Go on. He goes from really malicious to, hey, goes to Fantasy Island mode here. Hey, go on. Your dream world awaits. So Spellbinder, he attempts my read on this scene is always that Spellbinder, he's doing like the magic eye thing from his hand, from the device that's built into the costume. He's trying to shatter Batman's mind, almost Yu-Gi-Oh style. He's trying to shatter his mind by showing all these images from his subconscious. They're basically them reusing clips from the first season and a half.
Sort of like vaguely Clockwork Orange in a way.
I mean, pretty much, yeah. So yeah, we see like Blight and like Warren McGinnis, like also if you freeze frame, you can see, well, there's a clip from Splicers and there's just a clip from this and that. So there's only so much footage they have available. They want to break the animators. So Max chooses to save Terry. She springs into action, like knocks him around. Then we have like a really cool money shot of the episode. I was tempted to use this, but I was like, we need to get Batman in there somehow. Where Max is like taking him out by she's like her foot's on Spellbinder's chest, shocking the crap out of him, shutting everything down. So it's a good money shot.
Sure.
So then we have a wrap up here where it's like the end of. You'll notice a pattern with the Batman Beyond episodes. A lot of the time we end, or at least we begin the end quota with the news, with exposition on the news with the AI newsman.
I mean, it's a solid device.
It is. It's something to kind of notice, though, where it's like, now we have a way to help the victims of Spellbind. Basically, okay, they're not going to be comatose or near dead forever, kids. Or we found a way to help them out and help out the addicts. So we had to put a Band-Aid solution on it a little at the end, but, So Max apologizes and says, I just want to be part of something, And Terry says, well, congrats. You are now. Just take a little slower.
Uh-huh.
At the end, they walk off to the sunset. Yeah.
Okay, Richard's victim says, I can't wait to grab him and torture him for answers, and I'm going to do something to his neck, too. Terry, calm down. Just tail him. This is a criminal, not Max. God. All right, so final thoughts. I think this is really solid. I don't think it's up there in probably my top 5 of the series or anything, but it's definitely better than the past couple episodes we've covered. A really interesting sort of, drug allegory. Yeah, I liked it a lot. And of course, the Max stuff is probably the best part of the episode, just as far as really making some groundwork for that character.
It's kind of funny. By the time we're talking about this episode, HBO Max has turned from that.
Oh my God!
Max. So, Max got the last.
She should be the fucking. She should be the mascot for Max.
Wouldn't that be one? They'll never do that. Wouldn't it be wonderful though?
They'll never do it. You're right, but
hey,
Max is where I'm watching this show.
Imagine this. Hey, Pretty, you want to be kind of like the Tom figure from Adult Swim?
Oh my God! Okay, anyway. Seriously, I feel like that would really help with their branding, unironically. People don't even have to know that she's from Batman Beyond.
I mean, she's got a compelling design. It does play. It was kind of ahead of its time. It looks cool, So, So if this episode, I gotta be honest, on the rewatch, now that I haven't seen it before, but on the rewatch, this I think this episode was stronger than I remembered it being. I think with the the drug allegory, but also just our usage of Spellbinders, there's the palpability of kind of the withdrawal and then kind of the addiction of it all. I don't know. It played really well on a rewatch, so it was a good one.
Great. Let's see. Big thanks to Richard's victims, of course. Code Geass anime fan, and also Lucas Green, as well as Warp Monarch. You guys are all awesome. I really appreciate the engagement. Okay, Dragon, take us out. What's the next one?
Date gone disappearance. A memorable mad bomber. Ratcatcher. Beyond. Will Chili turn to calamity? Can Batman save Dana from her secret admirer? Tune in next time to find out. Same animated bat time, same animated bat place.
On the next visit to the Batcave Beyond with rats!
Oh, rats.
Who made you the